I'm Alyssa, 25. At a family dinner in Maplewood, my sister's fiancé mocked me in Russian while my parents played along, assuming I couldn't understand. But I did. If you were my age, would you stay quiet or say something right there at the table? The evening had that polished suburban calm that feels borrowed rather than earned. Wood floors breathed out the faint scent of wax. The kitchen TV murmured from the corner, a soft stream of headlines that no one was really listening to. The dishwasher blinked its waiting light, a promise of clatter later. Through the screen door, the night carried a faraway hush, the kind you get in a town where tree canopies outnumber street lamps, and the turnpike exists only as a distant ribbon of sound. We ate in the way families do when every role is practiced. My mother, Linda, narrated the salad like it was a guest. My father, Robert, asked measured questions as if taking attendance. Natalie glowed the way fiancés often glow, her ring catching the pendant lamp every time her wrist turned. Dimitri sat at her side. Posture, neat. Face polite. He was handsome in the tidy way of a man who irons his small talk. My plate held a modest square of baked pasta, steam lifting in calm curls. Forks chimed against ceramic, a silver pulse that kept time with our indoor weather. I could name each sound without looking: the ice maker's cough, the scrape of chair legs, the faint thud of someone closing a cabinet with more care than necessary. All of it stacked into the domestic rhythm. You learn before you learn your own name. So, my father said, eyes scanning the table, "How's everyone doing?" "Good," Natalie answered quickly, a glint at the edge of her smile. "Busy, but good." Dimitri nodded as if co-signing. "We've been going nonstop," he said, vowels rounded by a trace of accent he usually smoothed out, across from me. My mother refolded her napkin. "Alyssa, you're so quiet. You okay?" "Honey," I smiled a small, dutiful smile. "I'm fine." That was when Dimitri angled toward Natalie. Chin dipped. Voice just above a whisper, a ribbon of Russian loosed into the air between them. The syllables were soft and quick, the kind that hide in polite rooms. My mother caught the tune, not the words, and made a sound that could pass for a laugh. My father's mouth tugged into a grin he might later call neutral. It was the sort of family nod that says, "We are being pleasant." The words were not pleasant. There are certain consonants in Russian that land like folded knives, not loud, just definite. He used one of those now, tucking it into a sentence that, to anyone else, would have sounded like a compliment disguised as a shrug. My ears took it in, sorted the grammar almost by muscle memory, and slid it into meaning. I didn't blink. That is a trick you learn. If you have ever decided that knowing more than you show can be a form of safety, Natalie's lashes flickered. She answered him softly. Also in Russian, a line that was meant to soften what he'd said. Or maybe to move the moment along. She was good at moving moments along. "You two," my mother said brightly, "you've picked a date yet." "Working on it," Natalie said. English again. Bright again. Dimitri added a sentence in the same agreeable tone he used for everyone. Then, to Natalie alone, Another ribbon of Russian. This time it curled with a word that means something like simpleton, but carries a domestic intimacy, the kind of word that pretends to be teasing, so it can be sharp without leaving marks. The kind of word people aim at women who don't talk loudly. My mother's nod came a hair too fast. My father sipped his water. I cut my pasta and lifted a bite that I knew would be too hot. Because the mouth can keep secrets if the tongue is busy. The light above the table buzzed a little. The way summer bulbs do, the TV in the kitchen announced weather somewhere else. The room kept being a room. It is remarkable how rooms do that, while a different weather starts inside your chest. Work is good, Robert asked, aiming the question at the table in general. Busy, Natalie said again. A safe word for safe people. She was trying to keep the dinner within the lines. It is what she does, what we were raised to do. Dimitri's hand hovered over the breadbasket, and as he took a slice, he let out another small sentence in Russian, shaped like a compliment, weighted like a jab. He did not look at me while he said it. He looked at the bread, at the crumbs it made, at his own hand. This is an old trick too. Speak to the air and hope the air carries your meaning where you want it to land. My mother placed an extra napkin by his plate as if she could pad the moment. Try the sauce. She said, I added more herbs this time. He smiled at her with careful gratitude. Very good. He said, and then, still smiling, added a word in Russian that means obedient, the sort of word you give to a child or a pet. He aimed it at me, not with his eyes, but with the angle of his voice. I kept my hands steady. There is a discipline to restraint that feels like holding a plank a second longer than comfort allows. Inside, gears clicked. Not the gears of revenge, that is too loud a word for what I felt, but the gears of alignment. It is a clean sensation when a boundary finds itself. Do you want more water? Natalie asked me, her voice a touch too bright. I'm okay, I said. When I looked up, I caught Dimitri's gaze only for a moment. It flashed, not with malice. Malice is flamboyant, but with the complacency of someone. Sure, the room belongs to him. He glanced away quickly. Left shoulder, hitching in a shrug that could be read as harmless. He was careful. He was almost always careful. My father began a story about a neighbor's lawn. Les extravagances. The sprinkler timing. The way the light catches grass when the day is almost over. He tells stories like that when the air needs anchoring. My mother reached for the serving spoon, and I watched her watch my face. She didn't know exactly what Dimitri had said, but she knew the pitch of women. Mothers often do. There is a particular silence that is not absence, but structure. It shows you where the beams are. The beams, this evening, were politeness. The roof, appearance. You can live under a roof like that for a long time and call it home. Manido. I took another bite. Slower now. My fork clinked the plate. A small bell. I let my eyes float over the scene like I was describing it to myself for later. Natalie's ring. The condensation on Dimitri's glass. The fold in my father's cuff. The way my mother's earring caught the same light as the butter knife. Inventory is a way of staying. Another string of Russian slid out of Dimitri, soft enough to claim it was between him and the air. He liked metaphors that gave themselves plausible deniability. This one compared patience to dullness. It landed on the tablecloth with the weight of a paper cut small, real, designed to be called nothing. I heard it, filed it, and felt the brief spark of that inner voice that doesn't say, you must, but rather, you could. It is a gentle voice. It is older than my age. Dessert later, my mother asked the room, buttoning the rhythm with hospitality. Sure, Natalie said. We brought something. She reached for a white box near the counter. Its ribbon curling into a loose question mark. Dimitri wiped his fingers with the precision that read masculine to people who confuse neatness with virtue. I'll get plates. My father offered, already half standing. I looked at him and thought, kindly, that he had inherited the kind of politeness that repairs surfaces. It is not a flaw. Not exactly. It is a style of maintenance that keeps families functional, sometimes at cost. I have learned to count that cost quietly. In the kitchen doorway, the TV murmured an update about storms moving along, a coast that wasn't ours. The dishwasher, still empty, waited for our surrender. Summer dusk thickened at the window panes. It would be full dark by the time we divided the sweetness and called it dessert. Natalie smiled at me, a sister smile. Complicated and familiar. She wanted the night to stay pretty. I didn't want to ruin it. That, too, is something daughters learn. But I no longer intended to be the prettiest thing on someone else's plate. When Dimitri made a final little comment in Russian, the kind that polishes insult until it looks like a reflection, I set my fork down. Not loudly, not in the theatrical way people slam silver against ceramic in movies. Just a gentle place. Metal to glaze. The sound of a decision that respects itself. I smoothed my napkin with my left hand and lifted my water glass with my right. The condensation cooled the pads of my fingers. A simple sensation that felt like a reset. I took a sip and let my gaze move. Not to him. Not yet. But to my parents. Their faces held a posture that could pass for neutral at a distance. Up close, neutral head seems. There are moments few, clear, when you understand that a room is about to learn your vocabulary. I felt that understanding subtle, painless, and inevitable, like a puzzle piece, finally meeting the picture. It was cut from, it's good. I said, meaning the meal, the evening, the fact of family gathered under warm light, and also meaning, I am ready. I placed the glass down, right where the ring of water had marked the table. Mi fingers rested beside, steady, quiet, unshaking. The TV hummed. The night leaned closer to the windows. The house made the soft, living noises that houses make when they believe everything is ordinary. They thought I did not understand. Good. June sits differently in a kitchen when the air is careful. The windows are open just enough to suggest generosity. The screen holds back the night. The ceiling fan moves heat in slow circles. Our plates have settled into the second half of dinner, the part where conversation drifts into habit and everyone performs what they know. I have always been good at performing what I know. More salad, my mother asks, already reaching with the tongs. She's not asking whether I want it. She's asking the evening to keep its shape. I pass my plate and let the leaves slide on with a quiet rustle. We are a family that edits in real time, Natalie tips her glass toward me in a small sister salute. It is the kind we invented in grade school: chin lift, half smile, neutral enough to pass for nothing. She uses it now the way you lay a palm on a skittish horse. I hold her glance long enough to say I saw it, short enough to say we will not act it out loud. Across the table, Dimitri folds his napkin with the care of a man who learned etiquette as a language and enjoys speaking it fluently. He leans toward my sister and releases another thin strand of Russian, the syllables cushioned like cotton around a pin. My father doesn't know the words, but he recognizes cadence. His answering is a soft permission slip that he may not know he is signing. Rules of the table have a way of writing themselves when no one takes the pen. Ours were drafted over years of small choices that looked like kindness, keep the peace, let things slide, meet sharpness with a smile, and call it grace. If conflict is a storm, then a good family is a roof. That is what we were told. And we believed it because roofs are necessary and storms are scary. And girls are taught to worry about the weather inside the house more than the wind outside it. I learned Russian the way I learn most things I end up needing quietly, without permission. Not because I planned to use it, but because I liked the way the case endings clicked into place and how verbs could change clothes and become precise. Some sounds felt like small stones lining a path. Some felt like doors you could push with a fingertip if you knew how to position your hand. I carried that knowledge like a folded map, tucked away, not meant to prove anything. There were hints before tonight of how knowledge becomes leverage without your asking it, to a passing comment at a different meal months back that I didn't parse fully until later. The surprised look Dimitri gave when I laughed at a joke he told in English and understood better than he expected me to. Nothing you could pin to a calendar, nothing you could staple to an accusation, just weather. My mother's earrings catch the light when she tilts her head. The sauce came together this time, she says to no one and everyone. It did, I answer, because some agreements are free and keep the room from unraveling. The pasta is warm and sure. I taste time and something like resolve. Dimitri's voice drops. The stage whisper of a man trained to be discreet in public while forgetting that family dinners are not public. The word he chooses for me this time is the sort of word that could be defended as playful if anyone called him on it. He doesn't intend to be called on it. That is the point of a language you believe others do not share. Natalie gives him a small nudge with her knee. I recognize that nudge. I have used its cousins with people I cared about when they started running their mouths downhill. She wants the slope to flatten. She wants the night to be about dessert. My father clears his throat. We should plan the new light fixture. He tells my mother. As if illumination were a joint project, they could control something simple. Something simple. She echoes. And for a breath, the room agrees. I place my fork down for a water break and look around the space that made all of us. The framed photos along the ledge hold a polite history school concerts, a graduation robe, a family vacation near water where we looked like catalog people because we were on our best behavior. I remember the feeling beneath each image, the quick math of how to keep everyone comfortable, the way we took turns being the person who swallowed the hard part so the picture could come out clean. Rules of the table ask about work. Comment on the weather. Compliment the cooking. Avoid the jagged bit that sits in the middle of the plate. If a jagged bit shows, fold a napkin over it and call it presentation. Do you like it here? I asked Dimitri. Meaning, Maplewood, meaning the slow evenings and the way everything shuts down on time, it is civilized. He says English smooth, and then the private addendum in Russian, a country word for tame. As if suburbia were a field fenced for the sake of men like him. His smile is courteous. His eyes rest on the rim of his glass. The old me would have swallowed the translation and let it pass through, like a vitamin, technically helpful, mostly harmless. Not worth announcing. The me sitting here tonight files it differently. Not because the word is new, but because the game is... He believes the scoreboard is secret. He believes the referee is asleep. He believes that because the room has always protected its peace, it will protect him. My mother offers bread. I take a piece and let the crust crackle between my fingers. Something about the sound, ordinary and final, draws a line inside me. I will not make a scene. I will also not carry his scene for him. Alyssa, my father says, "What are you reading lately?" This is one of his safe questions. A path through the woods that never leads to the cliff. Nothing heavy. I say, just things that make sense when you read them out loud. It is the truest answer I can give without holding up a sign. Dmitri drops a new phrase in Russian, one of those comparative terms that lift one person by lowering another. The sentence is small but industrious. It builds a table with a short leg so that one place sitting wobbles while the other sits steady. He's been doing carpentry like this all evening. My parents don't feel the wobble. They have adjusted to uneven floors all their lives. I think about the first time I understood that families can confuse quiet with consent. It wasn't a headline moment. It was the 1,000th small accommodation, the way women in our line have leaned into courtesy until it curved back on them. We praised ourselves for grace while our backs learned the angle of someone else's comfort. I am not angry exactly. Anger is a flare. This is a tide going slack at last. You, all right? Natalie asks softly. English, this time, her voice aimed only at me. I'm good. I say, and I mean it. She hears the way I say it and turns a fraction toward Dmitri. That fraction is a sisterly weather vane. It announces a change before the rain arrives. The kitchen TV mentions travel delays in a city we can reach in less than an hour and visit only on purpose. The news anchor's calm is a familiar hymn. My mother checks the oven for nothing. A gesture that comforts her. My father refills water glasses he has not asked about. We are all doing the dance that kept us from stepping on toes. Even when some of us were being stepped on, Dmitri ties one more observation into his satin thread of Russian. It is about patience, again. But this time, the word he chooses carries a shade of obedience. The domestic kind you assign to women who do not interrupt. He does not look at me when he says it. He doesn't have to. He has learned that some words find their targets without the courtesy of eye contact. I breathe in. The room smells like basil and heat. I breathe out. The heat cools my tongue. The decision that began a few minutes ago stands up and stretches its legs. Not yet. It says, soon. It is an odd comfort to realize that you do not have to prove you understand in order to understand. Knowledge can sit beside you like a friend who doesn't need to be introduced. But sometimes friendship asks to be acknowledged aloud. Dessert after we clear, my mother asks, hope shaped like hospitality. After we clear, my father agrees, already stacking plates. The way he always stacks plates, 2 at a time. methodical, careful not to clatter. I help because I always help. I lift my own plate, and then Natalie's set them near the sink and rinse what needs rinsing. The dishwasher door opens with its usual weight. The rack slides forward. I arrange knives and forks with the same economy I use on my sentences. It calms the air. From the table, Dmitri offers a final aside in Russian, something about performance and audience. Tidy and smug. As if the night were a stage, he directs, "The words are small bones. They will not choke anyone, but they will stick." I dry my hands and return to my chair. Natalie watches me the way you watch a pot, will boil when it is ready. My mother smooths the tablecloth, finding an invisible wrinkle and pressing it into compliance. My father stands at the edge of the room like a man willing to carry chairs but not conflict. Rules of the table. One more time. Maintain tone, protect calm, keep the peace, even if the peace keeps itself by borrowing your spine. There is a difference between silence that cowers and silence that prepares. I have been both. Tonight, I know which one I am. Everything okay, my father asks. The way men ask when they mean, tell me it is safe to do nothing. It's okay. I say, and let the words hold exactly what they can hold, no more. No less. My voice is steady, my hands are steady, the night is steady in the false way that rides just before a true adjustment. Across from me, Dmitri smiles without teeth. He believes the evening is his. He believes this because rooms like ours have taught men like him that manners are a shield. They can aim outward. I look at the shield and recognize it for what it is. Thin metal that dents when truth taps it. The ceiling fan keeps its orbit. The screen door shivers once and settles. The dishwasher waits for the load it knows it will receive. All the house's mechanisms ready to do what they were built to do. So am I. The table looks thinner after plates leave it, like a stage after the props are rolled away. A braid of steam climbs from the open dishwasher, then vanishes. My father stacks dessert plates with quiet industry. My mother aligns forks, so their handles form a neat little horizon. Natalie unties a ribbon on a white box, easing it free, as if sound alone could break the evening. We all know the choreography that comes now. It is the safe half hour that follows dinner, something sweet. Softer conversation, the part where people call it a good night and believe they have earned the adjective. I let my hands trace the choreography. I do not let my mind move with it. On the counter by the sink, a glass leaves a wet ring. I set it on a fresh square of towel and watch the circle dull, then disappear. It occurs to me that this is exactly how certain words are meant to behave. Leave a mark only long enough to be denied. He has been counting on that. Small slices. My mother asks, opening the box, small. My father says, we've already done enough damage. Natalie laughs, studying the lid. You say that every time. Dmitri stands at the edge of the island, hands in pockets, a polished guest, in a home that wants to be gracious. He is not reckless. His cruelty prefers cover. He chooses a spot where his voice will be folded by distance, and then sends out another sentence in Russian, half-breathed, half-smiled. A remark about restraint that manages to grade my silence while pretending to admire it. I don't react. Not yet. When you know your moment is coming, you do not spend its strength early. I carry dessert plates to the table, 2 at a time. Then the fork teeth ring once against porcelain and then settle. My mother follows with small squares of cake, careful corners, equal portions, fairness measured in sugar. My father pours water. The pitcher glugs, then smooths out. So he says to the table, "We've made it through another week." His tone offers the room a landing pad. Barely. Natalie says with a grin. She aims the grin at me. A sister's bridge. Dmitri leans in toward her, cants his head, and in Russian wonders whether some people confuse quiet with emptiness. The sentence has that thin varnish of irony that makes it easy to deny. It would pass unnoticed in rooms where people only understand the tune. I let my fork rest. I look at him, not hard, not soft, just openly, the way you look at a window when you decide it is time to open it. He meets my gaze for a second, then chooses a crumb to study. The crumb obliges by being small and controllable. "Everyone comfortable?" my mother asks, lifting the room by its handles. "Very," Dmitri says. "English smooth? Friendly? Nothing to see." He adds 2 words in Russian that translate to more than comfortable, something closer to satisfied with oneself. I take a sip of water, the cold walking across my teeth. "Did you drive in today?" I ask him. Plain question. Plain tone. He glances at me, surprised by the direct address. "Yes." He says, "Traffic was good." I say, and turn my attention to the dessert. The exchange is unremarkable enough to be forgettable. I mean, for it to be what I want is not a scene, but a seam, a place where fabric will give when I pull. Natalie shifts in her chair, foot hooking the rung the way it did when we were kids and waiting our turns. My father slices his piece with the side of his fork. Meticulous. My mother watches all of us with the precision of a hostess who understands that comfort can be managed like a recipe. Dmitri tries another small string of Russian in observation about sweetness and appetite that doubles as a comment about self-control. He wears the expression of a man pleased with his own wit. It is quiet. It is not harmless. "Do you want coffee?" my mother asks him. A reflex of kindness. Later, he says, then, without moving his mouth much, a final private aside, a phrase that downgrades my patience to a deficiency. That is the seam. I lay my fork down, not with ceremony, just alignment. The dishwasher inhales. The ceiling fan answers with its patient orbit somewhere outside. À quelque part? Insistent, and then gone. The household steady so I can change. I turn first to my parents because honor, for me, starts there. I want the first faces that hear me to be the ones that taught me how to be heard. My voice, when I find it, is level, the kind of level you get when a picture is finally straight. "May I say something?" I ask. My father looks relieved by the shape of the question. "Of course," he says. My mother's hand still fork midway to plate. I look at Dmitri last. He sits with his best manners on, but his eyes have that narrowed calculation that men wear when they expect to win by knowing the rules better than you do. He believes I will break a rule. "I won't. I will use one. I've enjoyed the evening." I begin because I have in the way you can enjoy clarity even when it costs you The food, the company, the effort everyone makes to keep things pleasant. Dmitri inclines his head, already preparing to agree. And I add, I want to be very clear about one small thing. I let a breath come and go. The words choose themselves. I don't need to hunt them. They have been waiting behind my teeth all night. Polite, patient, precise. I turn my palm up, on open gesture, and in Russian, simple, courteous, I say a line that belongs in any beginning. Good evening. Thank you for dinner. I understand you perfectly. The sentence is not dramatic. It doesn't need to be, it lands with the soft firmness of a key in the right lock. For a second, no one moves. Sound drops out of the room like it has been edited. Natalie's eyes widen. Not with fear, but with that hush you get when a view clears and you see the exact thing you were trying not to drive past. My mother's fork touches the plate and stays there. My father blinks. A slow, careful blink, as if adjusting the focus on a lens. Dmitri's smile holds for half a breath and then misplaces itself. He doesn't look angry. He looks ungathered, like a man who set down an argument and can't find where he left it. I let the Russian settle. Then I translate calm and neat, cutting nothing, adding nothing. I repeat the phrases he used this evening. The ones trimmed to look harmless, I give them back in English with their edges restored. My tone is factual, almost gentle. I name no names. I attach no adjectives. I simply put the words on the table where the dessert is and let everyone see what they've been eating. My father inhales and sets his water down, as if it weighs a little more now. My mother's jaw works, not in anger, in recognition. Natalie glances at Dmitri and then at me. Somewhere between apology and thanks, her face, the geography of a sister, caught between two maps. Dmitri clears his throat. You, he begins in English, then stops, recalculates. You speak. I do. I say enough to understand when I am spoken about rather than to. Silence locates the corners of the room. The ceiling fan moves air that no one claims. The TV in the kitchen carries on without us. Soft headlines about weather we are not having. I do not offer a speech. I do not request an apology. I let the information exist where it belongs in public, in the same room as the people who assumed it could be kept private. A boundary is not a lecture. It is a line. My mother reaches for the napkin in her lap and folds it once. Then again, each crease deliberate. I didn't know, she says quietly. The words aimed at me and at herself. I know. I answer, there is kindness available here. I spend exactly enough of it. Dmitri tries on a shrug that would like to be charming. It does not fit. I was joking. He says, the weak umbrella of men who bring rain and call it play, in a language you thought I didn't share. I say, still calm, at a table where we are meant to share, we leave it there. I do not need him to agree with me to be correct. What I needed was to open the window. Fresh air can be uncomfortable for people who prefer perfume. My father clears his throat again. Not to redirect now, but because the body asks for something to do when the mind arrives somewhere late, he lifts his fork and puts it down He nods once. An adult man, trying not to be a child in front of his daughter. I'd like to have dessert, I say softly, because routine can be a rope back to shore, and also a way of proving we are still ourselves. Yes, my mother says, and the yes carries apology and acceptance and the promise of better manners later. Natalie exhales in a way that almost sounds like laughter, not mockery. Relief. She settles her slice in front of her and touches my wrist under the table. The smallest of thanks. Dimitri chooses silence, which, for the first time tonight, feels like respect rather than strategy. We eat. The cake is sweet and a little dense, the kind you cut with pressing patience. The room learns how to hold a new shape without shattering. I do not look at anyone for approval. I do not scan faces for permission. I have already given myself what I needed. When I finish my slice, I lift my plate and carry it to the sink. Water runs, the steam catches my face and slides away. The dishwasher receives the plate with its small, agreeable rails. I stand there a second longer than I have to, letting my pulse remember that it can idle. Behind me, voices return at low volume, ordinary phrases trying themselves on. Would you like more water? It's getting warm this week. We should wrap the leftovers. No one mentions languages. They do not need to. The room speaks one now boundary. I dry my hands and step back to the table. My father looks up and meets my eyes, and something in his face rearranges, not guilt. Not quite. More like the start of a new map. My mother reaches for the dessert box to close it. Her fingers are careful. Natalie leans into her chair, shoulders lowering, as if the air weighs less. I pick up my glass and take a last sip. The ring it leaves is smaller this time. I do not wipe it away, let it fade on its own. Some marks should be visible as they disappear. Coffee. My mother tries again. Out of instinct. Thank you. I'm all set. I say, this was lovely. And it is in the way an honest room is lovely, not because everything inside it is perfect, but because the light is finally pointed in the right direction. I gather my napkin, fold it once, place it beside the plate. I look at my parents before I look at anyone else. Shall we take a breath? I say gently, and then have a little fresh air. My father nods. My mother nods. Natalie nods. Dimitri does not object. The back door opens with its familiar sound. Night person suburban Kiat. That distant road, hum. The soft conversation of leaves. The house exhales. So do I. The reveal, my speaking Russian and calmly translating Dimitri's remarks, happened at the close of Chapter 3. Chapter 4 continues in the same moment. Holding the silence. Setting the line. And letting the room learn its new shape. The back door was open. The screen, holding the night in a soft grid. Air moved through the kitchen in a thread. Enough to cool the heat that rises when truth is finally said out loud. The ceiling fan kept its circular patience. My mother's fork rested where it had landed. My father's hand still touched his water glass as if he had placed it down and then forgotten to let go. I did not fill the silence. I let it stand. A frame around what had been hung on the wall. There is mercy. Sometimes in not talking right away. Natalie blinked like she had come up from under clear water. Thank you. She said, small, and meant the kind of thanks people offer when they are briefly led out of a fog into a field, Dmitri glanced toward the open door, then back to me. His manners, trying to find their footing, I did not intend. He stopped, tasting the edge of that sentence. Intent likes to be the hero of its own story. Tonight, it had to stand next to impact and share the frame. You spoke to be understood by one person. I said, my tone even. You were... My mother pressed her napkin into a neat rectangle. A motion that looked like prayer if you didn't know her. We didn't realize, she said, the words quiet but not small. I know, I answered, because I did knowledge, like steam from the dishwasher, rises and disappears. What matters is whether you feel the brief heat and decide to stop touching what burns other people. The kitchen TV kept murmuring, the anchor's calm, a background hymn. My father reached to switch the volume down a notch. The remote clicked like a throat clearing. He took a breath, found a place in it where his voice could settle, and said, that was clarifying. It was simple. I said, understanding is simple. Respect can be, too. No one argued with that. Arguments require positions. We were all still looking for places to stand. Natalie brushed a crumb from the table's edge. A tiny, grateful ritual. Coffee, she tried. A sister's off-ramp to keep us from circling the same patch of road. Later, I said, let's sit a moment. We did. We let the new air move through. The dessert looked suddenly formal, like punctuation that arrives mid-sentence. I lifted my fork again, took one small bite, and set it down. In the ordinary act, there was a lesson. Life can continue without pretending nothing happened. Dimitri's eyes went to the slice in front of him. He cut a narrow corner with the carefulness of a man making precise corrections. If I caused offense, he began, I apologize. The sentence was almost right, and not quite. I did not make him finish it in the shape I preferred. I am not a teacher, and this is not a classroom. I nodded once, the kind of acknowledgement that leaves room for people to fill their own blanks later. For tonight, I said, let's just agree on this at this table. We speak to each other, not around each other. In any language, my father's shoulders dropped a fraction, a release he probably didn't feel until it happened. Agreed. He said, and the word surprised him with how well it fit his mouth. My mother glanced between us, then found me and stayed there. Agreed. She added, softer, as if placing a blanket over something that had finally stopped shivering. Natalie looked at Dmitri, then back to me. We can do that, she said, taking care to make we big enough to include all of us. Dimitri's nod was small. Unadorned. For a man who liked polish, the plainness read as effort. We finished dessert the way you finish anything that has been interrupted by clarity aware. Quieter. Grateful for the simple mechanics of chewing and swallowing and placing a fork down without needing it to ring like a bell. The dishwasher door opened its little mouth. The rack slid forward. I carried plates, not because it was expected, but because it let my hands do honest work while my mind set shelves in order. At the sink, warm water slid over china, steam lifted in a thin veil. My mother stood beside me, handing things over. The choreography we both knew by heart. Twice she started to speak and did not. On the third try, she found her words. I thought we were being welcoming. She said, wincing at the way the word sounded now that light had changed. You were. I said, and also, we can be more than welcoming. We can be careful. She nodded, as if cataloging that distinction and putting it where she could find it again. When she turned back to the table, her posture had shifted by millimeters, the tiny kind of change that announces itself later in better habits. In the dining area, my father straightened a placemat that didn't need straightening. The domestic equivalent of a man retying a rope because it has held. Dimitri stood, hands at his sides, unsure whether to help, to sit, to speak. Natalie gave him a quiet look that said, not now, later, with me. He received it. I wiped the counter with a clean square of towel. The circle I made, erasing the ghost of the water ring my glass had left earlier, it had nearly faded on its own. Almost isn't always enough. When I turned back, all four of them were watching me in different ways. My father, as a man, watches the horizon for weather. My mother, as a woman, watches a door. She wants to learn how to open. My sister, with the relief of someone who just saw a map unfold, and Dimitri, like a person meeting a mirror he hadn't expected to be accurate. I did not perform anything for them. I simply returned to my chair, took my place, and set my hands where they had been before, palms quiet on the table. Shall we have some air? I asked, making the question gentle. The night at the screen was patient. It would wait if we needed it to. Yes. My father said, gratitude hiding inside the syllable. We walked the few steps to the open door and stood where the kitchen's light dissolved into the softened dark. The yard hummed with small, living noises. Somewhere far off, the hint of highway threaded the silence. A proof that other people were moving through their own evenings. I did not switch on the porch lamp. Letting our eyes adjust felt right. You learn more when you choose to see in the light that exists. Natalie leaned a shoulder against the frame. I'm sorry, she said. Words meant for me and not meant to drag us back into the kitchen. I should have. You handled what you could handle. I said, we all did. Dimitri stood 2 paces back, the screen's diamond shadow crossing his shirt. He cleared his throat, then didn't use it. Restraint on him looked new. He was trying it on. My mother touched my elbow. A brief, steady pressure, then let her hand fall. Thank you for saying something. She said 6 simple words that made space. You're welcome. I said, and meant it without triumph. Justice, when quiet, does not need a trophy. My father shifted his weight. We should take better care. He offered, building a sentence as if it were a small bench enough to sit on together. We should. I agreed. A moth tested the screen, found it firm, and left. The night smelled faintly of cut grass, and the day's leftover sun. In the half-light, I could see Natalie's profile soften. Some evenings end with a slam and a sting. This one was ending with a hinge that had finally been oiled. After a few minutes, we moved back inside. The kitchen welcomed us with its humble domestic music, the dishwasher beginning its wash, the faucet ticking as it cooled, the low bench notes of a refrigerator at work. My mother gathered the last of the plates. My father returned the remote to its place, as if that, too, were a way of putting order back where it belongs. Dmitri passed by me on his way to the table, paused, and chose one clean, public sentence. "I will be more considerate," he said. "Not elegant. Sufficient. Good." I said, letting the word end where it ended. The room did not require a handshake or a hug. It required us to live the next minutes in the shape we had just described. So we packed leftovers into containers. Without naming them, we wiped the table. We refolded the throw on the back of the couch. Small work. Honest work. The kind that keeps peace sturdy, because it is built, not borrowed. When everything that needed doing was done, I gathered my things: a light sweater, my phone from the charger, a hair tie I had set near the fruit bowl. The house had returned to its ordinary heart rate. We were ready for the part of the evening where people say goodbye and mean it. I looked at my parents first. "Thank you for dinner." I said. My words matched the ones I had used earlier in Russian. The symmetry pleased me. "You're welcome." My mother said, her voice steadier, "Drive safe." My father added, not out of habit this time, but like a wish. He understood the value of. Natalie met my eyes and nodded once. Later, it said, "We'll talk later without urgency, without dread." Dmitri stepped aside to give me the path to the hall. A small gesture, unannounced. I noticed it. He meant for me to. That was fine. I reached for my keys on the entry table, felt their familiar weight, and closed my hand. The sound they made when they settled into my palm was clear but not loud. I had no interest in loud. "Good night," I said, and for the sake of the lesson finishing itself, I added a brief, courteous farewell in Russian. Nothing more than "sleep well." It was a period at the end of the sentence we had written together. No one flinched. No one pretended not to understand. I turned toward the front door. The porch light, still off, held the dark without threat. Out beyond the hedges, the quiet road waited the way roads do in towns like ours, patient, reliable, ready to carry you where you already know you're going. Behind me, the sound houses make when they approve, not applause, not a cheer. Just the small, satisfied hush of a place, learning better manners. The front hallway held a cooler quiet than the kitchen, the kind that collects in entryways where shoes learn patience and coats keep their stories on hooks. My keys lay calm in my palm, their small weight an honest measure of the night. Behind me, the house breathed dishwasher, steady, refrigerator low. The after music of a gathering that had finally tuned itself. "Take some cake," my mother said softly from the dining room threshold. As if hospitality could sew up a seam we had just cut clean, she held the white box Natalie had brought, ribbon coiled into a comma. "Thank you," I said, and stepped back 2 paces. So I stood halfway between leaving and staying. Boundaries prefer thresholds. Doors are good teachers. Natalie joined her, one hand under the box, the other nudging the lid into place. It'll be better tomorrow, she said, meaning the cake, maybe meaning us. It will, I said. The words behaved for both meanings. Dmitri lingered a respectful distance from the hall, a posture that looked new on him. His face had learned stillness in the last half hour. Stillness is a language too. It can mean I am thinking, or I am waiting, or I am deciding what to do with the person I told myself I was. He watched without staring. My father came toward the entry table and straightened the small dish that caught spare keys. It did not need straightening. He kept his hand there anyway, like a man acknowledging the place where people put what they carry when they need both hands for something else. Before you go, he said, finding the careful tone he uses when ladders are out and the gutter needs attention. I'd like to say he paused. Not for effect, but to be right. We hear you. The sentence arrived plain and useful. Like a step you can trust. I nodded once. Thank you. My mother set the dessert box down on the entry table and opened her hands as if to show she wasn't hiding anything. I thought kindness was enough. She said, more to the air than to any one of us. Sometimes I use it like a blanket. Tonight, it felt like a curtain. Kindness is still good. I said, curtains can open. She breathed out, small relief, and folded the invisible cloth into a tidier shape. Natalie touched the ribbon, then looked at me. I'll talk with him, she said, and let the rest stay implied, not to defend, not to punish, to align. She had moved into that precise middle 1,000 times for other people. Tonight, she was choosing the middle as a place to balance, not to disappear. That's between you, I said gently. Boundaries acknowledge jurisdictions. They do not annex. Dmitri took one step forward. Measured, public, his voice steady enough to walk on. I did not respect the room. He said, I understand that now. I didn't reward him, and I didn't punish him. Some lines do not need applause to stand. At this table, I repeated, we speak to each other, not around each other. In any language, the sentence fit here in the entryway, as cleanly as it had fit beside dessert. He nodded. The nod was small but real. He did not ask me to soften the rule. He did not ask the room to rescue him from it. The porch stayed dark. I liked the way the absence of light drew our outlines in honest proportions. In bright light, people perform. In soft dark, they listen. Your drive, my father asked. A practical kindness. His voice finding a path back to the part of caring he understood best. Short. I said, I'll be fine. We should walk you out. My mother offered, etiquette reaching for its shoes. It's okay. I said, let's keep this here. I tapped the air between us. The small square of hallway that had become neutral ground. Some conversations deserved to end where they did their work. We stood together in that square a moment longer. The house adjusted around us, pipes cooling, stairs remembering footsteps out past the hedges. The road kept its patient promise. I could feel the night ease. Aftershocks are not explosions. They are the body sorting itself Natalie lifted the dessert box again and held it toward me. "Take it," she said, the faintest smile at the corner of her mouth. Proof that something sweet made it through. I accepted the box. It didn't feel like a peace offering. It felt like a receipt. "Thank you." I said, "I'll have it in the morning." The future, named simply, is sometimes enough. My father cleared his throat, not to fill silence now, but to make room for words that need a runway. "I want you to know," he said, "that your mother and we didn't protect you well tonight." The sentence wobbled on its feet. Then it stood. He found the second sentence faster. "We will do better." My mother nodded, not as an echo, as an agreement signed with her eyes. "I appreciate that." I said, "Agreements do not erase what came before. They afford a better next step." Dimitri shifted his weight. For a half breath, I thought he might volley a defense. He didn't. He folded his hands behind his back instead. "That, too, was new. It's late." I told the room, the way you tell a child it's bedtime without making the night sound like a scold. "Let's end well." "End well?" Natalie repeated, as if testing a phrase she could use later. "We did the unremarkable things that close a family evening." My mother checked the lock on the side door. My father clicked the kitchen light to a lower setting. Natalie gathered 2 stray glasses and made them not stray. Dimitri stood quiet. Not exiled, just included under a rule he had finally heard. Then we circled back to the small geometry of goodbye 4 faces. One door, I gave each of my parents the brief, ordinary embrace we've practiced all my life. It landed better tonight because it had nothing to hide. "Good night, sweetheart," my mother said, voice steady, not performative. "Good night," my father said, the word carrying promise rather than escape. I stepped toward Natalie, touched my forehead to hers the way we used to when we were small and didn't have better rituals. "Sleep," I said. It held more than the syllable. She squeezed my wrist in answer. "Text when you get home," she said, then caught herself and softened it into a sister's ask instead of a command. "If you want." "I will," I said, not because she needed the message, but because we both liked the thread. Dimitri waited until the family part of farewell concluded. When my eyes met his, he offered what he could offer without pretending to be someone else. "Good night," he said in careful English. Then, after a breath, in Russian, brief and plain, "I understand the rule." He kept it that simple. "Good night," I replied, also in Russian, equally plain. Courtesy is not capitulation. It is a guardrail. I turned the knob. The door opened onto the softer darkness of the porch. Night rose to meet me, cool and ordinary. I held the dessert box in one hand and my keys in the other. Behind me, the house stilled. No one rushed to add a final line. On the first step, I paused, not for drama, for alignment. Nights like this need a small, quiet click to set them in place. "One more thing," I said, looking back into the square of light where they stood. "If I'm quiet next time, don't assume it's consent. It might be consideration, ask. My mother nodded first. Fast. Grateful. My father followed. Slower. Certain. Natalie's mouth shaped a promise. Dimitri bowed his head just enough to count. That's all. I said, and it was. I stepped down and felt the old wood take my weight. The porch held. The hedges made their soft hedge sounds. Somewhere beyond the street, the low ribbon of highway hummed like a far-off appliance doing useful work. I liked that comparison. It made the world feel maintained. At the walkway's edge, I turned once more toward the door. The rectangle of indoor light framed the four of them, my parents shoulder to shoulder, my sister slightly forward, Dimitri off to the side without needing to be sidelined. It looked like a family adjusting itself. Small degrees enough to change of view. Text us when you're home. My mother called, this time, including my father in the plural and me in the circle. I will, I said again, and meant the larger version. The night accepted me without commentary. I followed the short path to the driveway. The kind, suburban stretch that has watched 1,000 arrivals and 1,000 departures without keeping score. Gravel whispered under my step in a language that requires no translation. At my car door, I set the dessert box on the roof and took a breath that went all the way down. The breath brought me back my own weight, returned clean by the air. I placed the box on the passenger seat tomorrow's sweetness, already promised, and closed the door with the soft thud suburban nights prefer. Through the windshield, I could see the front door still open to the screen. Their shapes moved, then blurred